Hey everyone, my name is Emily Carter, and today, I'm about to tell you something I never thought I'd share publicly. Before I begin, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments where you're watching this video from, because trust me, I want to know how far this story reaches. I used to think love meant safety, that once you said, "I do," your heart could finally rest. I thought Ethan was my forever, the one who would protect me from every storm. But what do you do when you realize the storm is living right beside you? There's a special kind of heartbreak that doesn't come from being cheated on. It comes from discovering that the person you built your entire world around is still emotionally tied to someone else. It's when every smile, every late-night text, every quiet moment starts to feel borrowed, like it was meant for another woman, and you were just holding her place. I didn't lose my husband overnight. I lost him piece by piece, memory by memory, until I followed him one night and finally saw the truth that had been hiding in plain sight. When I married Ethan Parker, people used to say we looked like a couple out of a movie, the kind that made you believe in love again. He was the man everyone admired, confident, steady, with that quiet charm that drew people in. He wasn't loud or flashy, but when he spoke, you listened. And when he smiled, you felt safe. I still remember our first meeting at a small engagement party of mutual friends. He stood across the room, laughing, his eyes catching mine for just a second. That one glance, it was enough. He walked over, introduced himself, and within minutes, it felt like I'd known him all my life. He made conversation easy. His questions weren't the usual small talk. He asked about my dreams, my childhood, what scared me, what made me laugh. And I told him everything. I shouldn't have, but with him, it felt natural. He told me about his past too. About a woman named Lydia, his ex-fiance. He said she left him just months before their wedding, said she wasn't ready to settle down. I saw the sadness flicker across his face when he said her name, but he smiled and told me that meeting me was proof that everything happens for a reason. I believed him. Because when a man looks at you like that, with warmth, with conviction, you want to believe you're his second chance at happiness. Our courtship was short but intense. Ethan would drive 2 hours after work just to have dinner with me. He'd show up with flowers for no reason, send good morning texts before I even woke up, and always ended his messages with, "You're my peace, Liv." Those 3 words became my favorite thing. Our wedding was simple, nothing extravagant, just close friends, family, and vows that felt like promises carved into forever. I remember looking at him during our first dance, thinking, this is it. This is my home. People told me I was lucky. And for a while I believed I was. The first year was beautiful. He'd bring me breakfast in bed on Sundays. We'd go on late-night drives, windows down, music low, his hand resting on mine. He'd look at me and say, "I still can't believe you're my wife." But what I didn't realize then was that sometimes people can love you deeply and still be haunted by someone else. The signs were subtle at first. The way he'd go quiet when an old song played on the radio. The way his eyes would drift off when I said, "Remember when we first met?" I thought he was just tired, maybe stressed. But now, looking back, I see it clearly. I wasn't living in a perfect marriage. I was living in the echo of someone else's love story. One that had ended for him, but never truly died in his heart. It was one of those evenings that felt ordinary, the kind of night you don't realize will change everything. Rain was tapping softly against the bedroom window. The air smelled like wet earth and lavender, the scent of the candle I always lit before bed. Ethan was in the shower, humming something faintly. I was curled up on the bed, scrolling through my phone, half distracted by the sound of running water. That's when it happened. His phone buzzed on the nightstand beside me. Once. Then again. Normally, I never touched his phone. I didn't need to. Trust had always been our quiet rule. But that night, something inside me stirred. A voice, soft but certain, whispered, "Look." I wish I could tell you I ignored it. I wish I could say I trusted him enough to roll over and go to sleep. But I didn't. My hand trembled slightly as I picked up his phone. And there it was. A message from Lydia's speech balloon. The name alone made my stomach tighten. I knew who she was. Everyone did. The woman he was once engaged to, the one who had broken his heart right before their wedding. He told me long ago that she was just a chapter that closed. But apparently, she had found her way back into the book. The message read, "Same time tomorrow? I can't wait." Just 7 words. But in those 7 words, my entire world tilted. I froze. For a moment, everything went silent. The rain, the shower, even my heartbeat. Then it hit me like a wave I couldn't outrun. He was meeting her. Again. 1,000 thoughts crashed inside my head. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe she reached out for closure. Maybe I was overreacting. But deep down I knew. Women always know. That instinct, the one we try so hard to silence, it never lies. When Ethan stepped out of the shower, steam swirling around him, he looked so calm, so normal. He smiled at me and said,
"Hey, leave.
"You okay?" And I smiled back. Because in that moment, I realized I needed to be quiet, not out of fear, but to see just how deep his lie went. That night, I lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every moment of our marriage. Every late night at work. Every sudden mood swing. Every text he'd quickly swipe away. And the worst part wasn't the message itself. It was how easy it was for him to hide it. How effortlessly he could live 2 lives and still kiss me goodnight like nothing had changed. I turned to look at him while he slept peacefully, and that's when I made a silent promise to myself. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to find out the truth, with my own eyes. And that decision was the beginning of the end. After that night, everything looked the same, but nothing felt the same. The next morning, Ethan kissed my forehead before leaving for work, just like he always did. But this time, that simple kiss felt like a lie pressed against my skin. I watched him walk out the door, my heart heavy with questions I couldn't ask yet. There's something haunting about pretending not to know what you already do. You start noticing every detail, every pause, every sigh, every flicker of emotion that doesn't belong to you anymore. That week, I started seeing the changes more clearly. He began dressing differently, ironed shirts, spritzes of cologne he hadn't used in years, freshly polished shoes. When I asked why he suddenly cared about how he looked for office work, he shrugged it off, saying, "We've got new clients coming in. Gotta look sharp." But I knew Ethan. I knew the difference between dressing for a meeting and dressing for someone. Then came the late nights. He'd come home past midnight, smelling faintly of expensive perfume I didn't wear. He'd smile, say he grabbed dinner with the guys, and collapse onto the couch, too tired to talk. But his phone, that never left his hand. He started keeping it face down, even when charging it. When it buzzed, he'd pick it up instantly, saying, "Just work." I remember one night vividly. He was in the kitchen, typing furiously, his back turned to me. The screen glowed softly, and I caught a glimpse of a chat window. No names visible, just a small heart emoji in the corner. When he realized I was behind him, he quickly minimized it. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He turned around with that practiced smile and said, "You really have to stop being so paranoid, Liv. You're imagining things." That word, paranoid, it cut deeper than any insult. Because when a man starts gaslighting you, it's not about love anymore. It's about guilt and the lengths he'll go to hide it. At night, he'd roll over in bed, his back to me, his breathing steady and calm. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if Lydia's name was the last thing he saw before closing his eyes. I tried to convince myself I was wrong. I tried to believe this was just a rough patch. But the truth was already whispering through the cracks. The emotional distance, the secretive behavior, the empty "I love yous" that felt rehearsed, it all painted a picture I didn't want to see. One evening, while folding laundry, I found a movie ticket stub in his jacket pocket. It wasn't from a night he'd gone out with me. He'd been to that theater weeks ago alone, apparently. But when I checked his calendar, that same night he had texted me saying, "Stuck at work, don't wait up." That's when it hit me. He wasn't just drifting away. He was already gone emotionally, if not physically. And the more he lied, the more certain I became of one thing. If I wanted the truth, I couldn't ask for it. I'd have to find it myself. That Thursday night felt heavier than usual, as if the air itself knew something was about to break. Ethan told me he had a client dinner downtown. I nodded, smiling like everything was normal, my chest tightening with a mix of dread and determination. I didn't know exactly what I would do, only that I had to know the truth he was hiding so carefully behind his lies. As soon as he left, I grabbed my coat, slipped on my shoes, and started my car. My hand shook, my heart pounding like a drum. Every street light we passed felt like it was watching me, counting down the moments until I discovered what I already suspected. I stayed a few cars behind him, careful not to be seen, but close enough to follow his every turn. He drove farther than I expected, out of the familiar streets of our neighborhood, into the quieter part of the city. Finally, he stopped at a small, cozy restaurant tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop, the kind of place that didn't stand out unless you knew what you were looking for. And that's when I saw her. Lydia. She was laughing, twirling her hair, completely unaware that someone else's world was crashing down right outside the window. Ethan stepped out of the car and walked toward her, and the way he smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes, made my stomach drop. He hugged her. Not the friendly, polite hug of acquaintances, but the kind of hug two people share when time and distance never truly broke them apart. I stayed hidden, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. They walked inside together, chatting like no time had passed at all, touching casually, leaning into each other's space. I could see them through the window. Their laughter, their whispers, the easy intimacy I hadn't seen from him in months. I felt my body go cold, then hot, then trembling all at once. I wanted to scream, to run inside, to throw myself at him and demand answers. But I couldn't. I had to watch. For the first time, I saw him as someone other than my husband. He wasn't the man I married. He was a man still tethered to someone else, someone who had lived in his heart long before me, and apparently still did. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching every gesture, every laugh, every hand brush. It was agonizing. It was humiliating. It was true. When they finally left the restaurant together, he drove her somewhere else. I didn't follow all the way, my body shook too violently to continue. But I had enough. Enough to know the betrayal wasn't in my imagination. It was real. It was deliberate. That night, I returned home quietly, my face cold, my mind racing. Ethan was asleep when I came in. He didn't know what I had seen. I climbed into bed beside him, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me like a physical thing. And for the first time, I realized the man I loved, the man I trusted with my life, he had already chosen someone else. And I knew that tomorrow, nothing would ever be the same. The next morning, I woke up with a weight on my chest that no amount of coffee or deep breaths could shake. Ethan was still asleep, his arm draped across the pillow, oblivious to the storm I carried in my heart. For hours, I rehearsed what I would say, how I would say it, and how I could keep my voice steady. But when I finally stood beside him, reality was sharper than rehearsal. "Ethan," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. He stirred, rubbing his eyes, and gave me that familiar sleepy smile. "Good morning, Liv. Sleep okay?" I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to break down right there. "I know about Lydia," I said. Just 4 words, but they hung in the room like a blade. His eyes widened, and I saw it, the flicker of guilt he had been hiding for months.
"Leave.
I can't explain," he stammered, sitting up, fumbling with the blanket. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo I had taken the night before, him and Lydia, laughing, sitting so close it made my stomach twist. He looked at the screen, then at me, and for the first time he didn't try to lie. He swallowed hard. His face turned pale, and he seemed smaller, somehow, as if the truth had stripped him of every shield he had. "I didn't want you to know," he whispered. "Ethan, did you stop loving her?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my efforts. He didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his hands, twisting them together. No, he said finally. I tried, Olivia. I tried to love you, but some feelings, some people leave a mark you can't erase. The words hit me harder than any betrayal could. I had suspected, I had followed, I had seen it, but hearing him say it aloud made the walls of our marriage crumble completely. I felt a part of me shatter silently. The trust one had poured into years of love and hope dissolving in an instant. Then why did you marry me? I demanded, my voice rising slightly. Because I thought I could move on. I wanted to try. I really did. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wanted to scream, to hit, to cry, to throw everything across the room. But instead I breathed.
Deep. Calm.
Controlled. You made promises, I said, vows that were never yours to give. You weren't with me, not fully. And now I know. I can't live in the shadow of someone you never stopped loving. He tried to reach for me, to say something, but I stepped back. For the first time, I realized that confrontation wasn't about forcing him to admit the truth. It was about me seeing it clearly, fully, and finally letting it go. That day, I understood that some people never change, and some love is never yours to keep. The confrontation didn't heal me. It didn't erase the betrayal, but it gave me clarity. And clarity was the first step toward reclaiming myself. The days after the confrontation felt like walking through a fog I couldn't escape. Ethan left that night, not angrily, not with threats, just quietly. He said he needed time to think, as if the months of lies and betrayal could be resolved with a pause. I didn't stop him. I didn't call. I didn't chase. I just watched him go, the sound of the front door clicking shut echoing in my chest like a final verdict. The house felt empty, yet heavier than ever. Every corner reminded me of the life I thought we had. The photos, the gifts, the little notes tucked in my wallet. All now felt like relics of a story that wasn't mine to live. At first, I cried endlessly. I screamed into pillows. I cursed the ceiling for being silent while my world broke. I went through our wedding album and wondered how I hadn't noticed the cracks beneath the smiles. But grief has a rhythm, and after a few days, anger and clarity began to seep in. I realized something crucial. My life, my happiness, my self-respect, they weren't his to take. Ethan had made his choices. Now it was my turn to make mine. I started small. I cleaned the house, packed away reminders of him and Lydia. I unfollowed him on every platform. I deleted old messages, not because I wanted to erase him, but because I wanted to reclaim my space, my energy. Then I began to focus on myself. I reconnected with friends I had neglected. I started writing again, something I had abandoned since our wedding. I exercised. I cooked meals just for me. I allowed myself to laugh at things that had nothing to do with him. Each small act was a stitch in a wound that felt impossible to close. The nights were hardest. I'd lie awake and replay our marriage, our conversations, every little lie and half-truth. But instead of letting it destroy me, I started journaling. I wrote letters I never sent, to him, to Lydia, even to the younger version of myself who believed in a perfect love. And with each word, I felt lighter. People ask me now if I hate him. I don't. Hate is heavy, and I refuse to carry it. I grieved. I accepted. And then I moved forward. By the end of those weeks, I realized the truth. Some people are only meant to teach you what you cannot accept in your life. Ethan taught me that love without honesty is not love at all. He taught me that betrayal can be a catalyst, not a tomb. And most importantly, he taught me that the only person I can truly rely on is myself. I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I was learning, painfully but surely, to survive, to thrive, to rise. That period after confrontation wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. It's been months since that night. The night I followed him. The night I confronted him. The night I realized that the man I loved had never truly belonged to me. And yet, somehow, I am not broken. In the beginning, it felt impossible to breathe without him. Every corner of the house, every memory, Every laugh I remembered with him haunted me. I would lie awake at night, imagining him with her, imagining the intimacy I had thought was mine alone. I'll be honest, there were days I wanted to scream at the world, at him, at myself. But slowly, I realized that the person I had been before the betrayal, naive, trusting, desperate to hold on, wasn't me anymore. I started small. I reclaimed my mornings, my space, my time. I went for long walks in the park, coffee in hand, listening to my favorite music. The wind brushing against my face felt like freedom. I began to focus on things that made me feel alive: writing, painting, reconnecting with friends I had ignored during my marriage. I set boundaries, not just with him, but with everyone, realizing that the woman I had been willing to give everything for could also protect herself. One day, I looked in the mirror and saw her, really saw her. Her eyes were stronger. Her shoulders held higher. Her smile, yes, even her smile, had grown sharper, freer. I realized that betrayal didn't just take from me. It gave me something too: clarity, strength, a chance to finally understand who I was without him. I also learned forgiveness, not for him, not for her, but for me. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or condoning what was done. It means letting go of the anger that keeps you trapped in the past. I forgave myself for trusting too much, for loving too fully, for believing in a story that wasn't mine to live. And now, I feel something I never imagined during the pain: empowerment. I am no longer defined by his choices, his lies, or the love he never gave me. I am defined by my resilience, my courage, and the love I finally reserve for myself. The woman I became after that night is not someone who waits for validation. She does not allow betrayal to dictate her worth. She does not cry silently behind closed doors.
She speaks.
She walks away when she must. She rebuilds when everything seems lost. And most importantly, she knows that her story isn't over. It's only beginning. To anyone watching this who has felt the same suffocating pain I did, I want you to know this: you are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply in the process of becoming. And the woman, the life, the happiness waiting for you on the other side is worth every tear, every sleepless night, every doubt. I am Olivia Parker. I survived. I learned. And I became stronger than I ever imagined. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories of love, betrayal, and strength.